So we have been talking on tempo issues, metronome issues, things like that, notation as well, which is more important for me, but the metronome numbers and the metronome interpretation and is really tying into that, double beat, single beat interpretation of those early metronome numbers quite a lot. If you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, I have several videos made. First of that with an interview with Lorenz Gadient, which is the author of this book, Takt und Pendelsschlag. It's out of print, I believe, but we're going to make a remake of this. So he's going to rewrite the book, basically, add all of the new information and translate it into English. What we're going to do today is have a look at Beethoven's Grave of the Pathetique, so the beginning section. And if you look to fast movements, I believe there is, if you open your mind somewhat for that, there is no doubt about the double beat thing and metronomization. So the fast movements become so incredibly fast that actually nobody can play them. There are some fast movements, of course, that people can play, but overall I would say 90% of the metronome numbers, and we have literally thousands of them by the greatest musicians of those days, they make no sense. They, even for the highest ranked virtuosos of today, are impossible to play, and if you reach that number, it makes no sense. For the slow movements, for me, it was always difficult to realize or to understand how that should have sounded, because if you take the slow movement metronome numbers and approach them in a metrical way, some of them become very slow. It's only in the Mozart Kachelverzeichnis 284, the D major sonata that I did recently in the Adagio section. I have a video on that. I will link it here in the description box or here in the video. You can check it out. That Adagio section I did play without knowing, somewhat in the range of the metrical understanding of the metronome numbers given by Czerny and Moscheles. So that is a slow movement in Adagio that, in my understanding, can only be played in that way, because otherwise the microscopic small ornamentations given on 30-second notes even make no sense. But overall, you will be surprised if you go to the slow sections of those sonatas and pieces and you really apply the double beat structure to that. It's not easy. For now, today, we're going to try the beginning of the Pathetique, which is an extreme example of a slow movement, and we see where we come up with. The reason that I'm doing that is because I've got a mail from Lorenz. He sends me regularly updates of his findings. And he writes in German, I translate, that he finally found the sitar, a kind of quote that he was looking for. It is a quote from the Anton Schindler biography of Beethoven in the last edition, 1871, page 358. And the quote is that the first, second, and third bar of the Pathetique, first movement, so the Grave, that the chord should sound as long as possible in a way that even the sound is almost not present anymore. So, die Akkorden sollen beinahe ganz verklingen. This is, of course, a very practical example of how fast Anton Schindler, in 1841, when he published this biography, and in updates later, believed that this Pathetique should sound. And I have the biography by Schindler in the English translation. So this is a first print, 1841. It's translated not by Moscheles, but it's edited by Moscheles. So you will find a lot of footnotes by Moscheles, where Moscheles does not agree on with Schindler. Schindler was a very much protectionist to Beethoven's life. He became in Beethoven's life from 1814, first meeting, but he made up a little bit of that story. So he became a kind of unpaid private secretary much later. But for several years they were very close. They lived in the same house. And of course Schindler changed, we know that, changed history a little bit afterwards by changing some notes in his notebooks and things like that. Basically, I think researchers today, musicologists, figured out what he changed. He wanted to protect the heritage of Beethoven. He was very much opposed to other musicians involving in the life of Beethoven, like he was opposed to Moscheles and Czerny. He wanted to have this world of Beethoven for him alone, but doesn't mean that everything he has written is just for the garbage. So what he's writing about interpretation, and it's not only about the Pathetique he's writing, is really interesting. And we will go next month in Beethoven project more into detail on that. If you're not familiar with this book, this is a facsimile. I will show you the first page. It's a French edition, French facsimile. So he gives all the speed indication, Italian words. I'll focus on the book so you can see it. And you'll find somewhere here, grave, on top of that. We focus on the clavichord. So it's very, very slow and very serious. It's even slower than the largo assai or the largo o larghetto. So you have on top of grave, largo, larghetto, lento, adagio, and then antino, andante, and then allegretto. So even andante is with the movement, mouvement lent, so slow movements, which is very interesting because that's not as we approach the andante today. So then go to Czerny and then to some music, do some testing. Czerny gives, for all Beethoven works, metronome numbers. Here it is. So he gives 16th note 92. And he writes, die Introduktion wird so langsam und pathetisch vorgetragen, dass wir das Metronom nur durch Sechzehntel bezeichnen konnten. So what he's saying is that the introduction is so slow and so pathetic, maybe that's not a good translation, that he has to indicate the metronome numbers by 16 notes. So 92, we have it on the metronome, but we do two tests. First, how long my clavichord sounds stays with the first chord. Remember, when Schindler writes this, I really think he is genuine in what he's writing about, the performances of Beethoven's work. There is also an extensive passage on the Opus 40 number 1. We're going to do that next month, that sonata, but that's so close to reality, and really that must be true. It must be very close to Beethoven's performance. He was, by the way, Schindler, a violinist himself, so a good musician. But he clearly had the pianoforte in mind. Pianoforte has a much longer tone, duration of tone, than the clavichord. My clavichord, which I believe is a very good one, has a very long tone, but not as close as long as a piano. I will not use the error because that's, of course, even one stage or several stages further than the pianoforte. The pianoforte will come over there. It's not ready yet. It's about to come, but it's not here. So we have to deal with the clavichord. But it's interesting because we can assume that the first chords of the grave, according to Schindler, certainly on the clavichord, must be gone away completely before continuing. So let's just hit the first chord and see how long that is, and then compare to Czerny. So it's about 6 to 7 seconds before the sound really disappears. It's still there in the clavichord, but you will not hear it very present. So let's assume 6 seconds, which is quite long. So Czerny gives 92 for the 16th note, which means basically that you have to take, I will show you the metronome of my beautiful old metronome. So it's without sound, but that's the... So you had metronomes without sound, you had metronomes with only, make a sound every 2 beats, so that's all to imitate the conductor. So you have chuck, chuck, chuck. So basically, my ticks now are the 16th notes. The other interpretation, single beat, would be chuck, 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 chuck for the 16th note. So now we try which one comes closest to that interpretation that Schindler gave us. So we know 6 seconds about is the duration of the note. So if we have the literally, so the today's reading of the 92 16th, we would have chuck, 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 chuck. About that tempo, a bit slower, chuck, 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 for the 16th note. So let's hear what that gives. That's about the version I've played on YouTube, you know, the recording in the beautiful 18th century hall. And it was the way I was playing this. But now, let's try the other version. So that's basically the half of the tempo. So two things you can say, that indeed in this tempo on the clavichord the sound is almost disappearing. I would say this tempo would be better on the clavichord, on pianoforte, because there the sound would last longer, but it's still present. So according to the definitions, so as you want to say, given by Schindler in his third edition of his biography on Beethoven, it makes sense to approach the Czerny metronome number in the metrical sense, so in the double beat sense. Second thing, and of course it's matching Czerny with Schindler, you can have slight differentiations of tempo. It's not that you have to play it at 92, but that's the speed that Czerny's metronome was sticking in when he was metronomizing these works. So that's really important. And second thing, again for me a lesson, real time with you, that this piece really becomes very serious. It's not easy though to build up the tension in these long chords, and we today might be too afraid of long chords, but listen. Also the silence that you get in between. But again, during a long chord like this, you need to build up tension. It's a wrist movement again. You go to that note and can feel it as a listener too. So by extending this tension a little bit, this chord a little bit, you increase the tension. It is not easy to do. Slow movements were considered to be the most difficult ones in those days. But there is something in that that's really new, that's really far from what we are used to hear, what we used to feel. It goes very deep, and that's always the case. Taking these speed indications in this way, it will not open for you if you're not familiar with that. Overnight, it will bring a new culture of playing, but it brings new emotions as well, and they are so refreshing and so deep. Anyway, so to me, that's a solved question. Metrical approach for the Czerny 1692 metronome number, I think, is matching up completely with what Schindler is writing. That's one source, another source combining gives three-dimensional information, and for me that makes sense, totally sense, and there is new things are opening for that. So sorry this was a long video, even I had to switch cameras because my battery went down during the first half of this video, but I think it's important to address. Hope you liked it. We will make a lot more of these videos, maybe a little bit shorter. Sometimes we need some time to address because here were a lot of things involved. Czerny, Moschles, Hummel, some sources, some other things. So that is the nature of talking about things in depth a little bit more, that the videos are a little bit longer. Hope you don't mind. Thank you for watching that long and staying with me that long. If this is your first time here on That Authentic Sound, love to have you subscribed. We'll definitely make more videos of this, as we do cover other things like keyboard techniques and composers and things like that. Also on a regular basis with live streams as well. Anyway, thanks for watching, sharing this video. Hope to see you next time again. Bye.